Hello and welcome to the lecture 13 of the course Microelectronics Lab. In this module, we are going to give you a laboratory demo of Raman electroluminescence photoluminescence spectroscopy. We will give you a brief overview and introduction of the basic working principle of Raman spectroscopy before we get to the setup. We'll talk about components of Raman setup and we'll show you different components over the setup. We'll show you how the Raman spectra and the ELPLS spectra is taken using the setup. We'll talk about the spectrum mapping on the sample in case you want to do a 2D mapping. And finally, we'll also talk about the electroluminescence and the photoluminescence spectrum acquisition using the setup.
Hello, today we will be talking about the Raman spectroscopy. So, in presence of other characterization tools like AFM, XPS, EDS and all other tools, there is a requirement of Raman spectroscopy because it has its own unique features, like we can chemically identify a particular molecule, we can also check how it degrades by the time, and also we can check how the local temperature varies by the time. So, these are some of the unique features of Raman spectroscopy which requires the presence of it in our lab. So, today we will be dealing with the Raman spectroscopy in detail. So, now we will talk about the introduction part of Raman spectroscopy. So, Raman spectroscopy phenomena were discovered by Dr. C.V. Raman in 1928, and this spectroscopy helps us to identify molecules using their unique fingerprint. And it is based on this spectroscopy is based on the vibrational, rotational and other low frequency modes that are found in our molecules. And for Raman spectroscopy, we uniquely use a laser beam because it is having a very small spectral width in spite of other normal light. So, what happens here is that radiation gets scattered after passing through a particular sample. So, whenever some particular light gets incident on a particular sample, so three phenomena can happen. Either the absorption could be there, then scattering could be there, or the total passing of the light will be there. So, that Raman spectring is totally based on the scattering phenomena. So, after that whatever the scatter beam is there, that is passed through a spectrometer, then that beam is after passing of the beam through a spectrometer, we can find the shift in the wavelength of the light. That shift in the wavelength provides us information about the vibrational and rotational modes of the molecules. We can use Raman spectroscopy to characterize materials, measure local temperature, study of its degradation by the time and composition of the sample. So, in the instrumentation part, first of all we have a laser source. In our lab we have two kinds of laser sources. One is of 532 nanometer and another one is of UV laser source, that is of 325 nanometer. That laser source goes through the sample, goes through the objective, and from objective it falls on the sample. So, after falling on the sample, we have the back scattered beam. Then that back scattered beam goes through the Rayleigh filter. We use the Rayleigh filter to cut that part of the wavelength of the light which was already in the laser beam, because we only want the shift in the wavelength of the light. Then that light goes to the CCD detector. CCD detector allows us to measure or detect the shift in the wavelength of the light. That shift in the wavelength corresponds to the anti-Stokes and Stokes lines. Now we will be dealing with the principle of the Raman spectroscopy. So, the monochromatic light that we use, that is of laser, after being incident on the sample, that may reflect or get absorbed or get scattered. But Raman scattering is totally based on the scattering phenomena. So, most of the radiation that falls on the sample, that gets elastically scattered, and the inelastic scattering is very rare. That happens 1 into 10 to the power 7 order. Inelastically scattered photons are either Stokes or anti-Stokes. So, Stokes are those photons where the frequency of the scattered light is less than the incident one, and anti-Stokes belongs to those portions where the frequency of the scattered light is more than the incident one. We measure the shift in the Raman in wave numbers in centimeter inverse form, where we can calculate it through the formula 1 by lambda incident minus 1 by lambda scattered, where lambda incident is the wavelength of the incident photon in centimeter and lambda scattered is the wavelength of the Raman scattered photon in the centimeter. We can now understand the Raman spectroscopy through energy level diagram. After absorbing the photon energy, molecule goes in a virtual energy state. In the first part, in Rayleigh scattering, the frequency of the incident light and scattered light is same. In Stokes-Raman scattering, the frequency of the scattered beam is less than the incident one. Similarly, in anti-Stokes-Raman scattering, the frequency of the scattered beam is more than the incident one. So now we will deal and discuss the different parts of the Raman spectroscopy setup. So first of all, we will discuss about the laser source part. So we are having here two laser sources. The first one is the class 3B laser source. This is a 532 nanometer, and this is the green laser, and this one is the UV laser. Its wavelength is 325 nanometer. So both are the class 3B laser sources. While using this laser, we have to be very careful because the direct beam in our eyes can burn our cornea and our eye, and also these are very dangerous for our skin. This is the laser power controller. It is used to turn on the laser. This laser can be turned on only using this key. This key is under the access of authorized person only. This laser enters this optical cabin through two mirrors which are inclined at an angle of 45 degree. This optical cabin consists of mirrors, lenses and different kinds of filters. Now I will explain all the optical components inside this upper cabin hood through which the laser passes before entering into the microscope. Enters through entrance E1. After entering, it gets reflected from mirrors M1 and M2. After that, it goes to polarizer P1 and then neutral density filter F1. This filter is used to absorb the laser intensity. Then it goes to lens L1, which is used to focus the beam. After that, it gets reflected through the mirror M3. Then it goes to pinhole H1. After that, it reaches the sample through objective after getting reflected from mirror M4. Then after getting scattered from the sample, the back scattered beam falls on relay filter F2. This filter is used to vanish the wavelength corresponding to the laser light. Then the scattered beam gets reflected from mirror M5 and then it goes to lens L2. Finally, it gets into CCD spectrometer after reflecting from mirror M6. The light enters into the microscope and then it falls on the sample through three different objectives. We have three objectives for green laser, that is 10x, 50x and 100x. We also have 140x ultraviolet objective. The sample is placed on the chuck below the objective which has motorized XY movement controlled through this joystick. Now the joystick is being moved and you can witness the chuck movement below the objective. The photon is scattered from the sample, passed through a spectrometer having two gratings, that is 600 groups per mm and 1800 groups per mm. The best spectral resolution is obtained using 1800 groups per mm grating, where we can achieve spectral resolution of 0.35 cm inverse. The dispersed light then goes to the CCD detector having a spectral range of 200 nanometer to 1100 nanometer. It should always be operated at a very low temperature such that the thermal noise should not corrupt the Raman signal. Ideally, it should operate at temperature of less than 21 degrees Celsius and humidity of less than 50%. Currently, room temperature and humidity are under safe operating condition. So now we have looked into the different parts of the Raman spectrometer. So further, now we will move towards the actual experiment.
So till now my friend guided you through the different components of the Raman spectrometer, the major ones being the laser, the upper cabin consisting of optical filters, lenses and mirrors, then the microscope, the objective, the chuck, the detector and the spectrometer. Now we will move forward to the next part, that is taking an actual Raman signal, and the first procedure will be loading of the sample. The first step for loading the sample is to move the chuck outwards. So now using this joystick, I'll move the chuck outwards. You can see the chuck coming out. Now this I am doing so that there is enough clearance for me to put the sample on the chuck so that it is not obstructed by the objective. Now that the chuck is completely out, I will take my sample . The central one is a silicon die. This is the sample or calibration sample provided by Horiba Scientific itself. This we will use to take the first Raman signal. This I will slowly keep on the chuck at the center such that the silicon sample is at the center of the chuck. Now it is recommended and it is best that we start to focus the sample using the objective with the lowermost magnification. So as we have 10x, 50x and 100x objectives, we will start with the 10x objective. To switch through objectives, we will use this turret. You can hear a ring, you can see a ring here. This turret I will hold and I will rotate till the 10x objective is vertical, and you can hear a click sound which confirms that it is in place. Now using the joystick, I will again move the chuck such that the sample is again below the objective that is vertical, that is the 10x objective. Now that the silicon sample is just below the objective, we can proceed to the next step. This is the software module for Raman signal acquisition and analysis, that is LabSpec 6 by Horiba Scientific. This is how the software window looks. Now if I go above, among the icon bars, this is the camera visualization window. So I will click on this camera icon, and as you can see, a black image is popped up here. It is black because till now I have not switched on the illumination source for the microscope. This is the illumination source for the microscope. I will turn this knob to slowly increase the illuminated light. Now as you can see, there is some light on the screen because I have turned on the illumination source, but still nothing is visible yet. So now I will focus on the sample surface using the knobs that are present on the microscope. I will use this coarse adjustment knob to coarsely change the focus, and then I will finally use the fine adjustment knob to finally focus on the surface. Now as I turn the coarse adjustment knob, I can see some features coming up on the screen. And now I have focused on the surface of the sample using the 10x objective. I will rotate the fine adjustment knob to check if any other focusing is required. Yes, so now the sample surface is fully focused, and now we can move on to the next step. Before moving on to the next step, to ensure that actually my sample surface is focused and it is not something that is present on the lens, I will move the joystick to see if the sample is moving. And yes, you can see the image is moving, which means this is actually the silicon surface. The green dot here denotes where the laser will be falling on the sample. So now I move to a suitable place from where I can get a clear signal for silicon. So now here I can see that there are no dust particles on the place where the laser beam will be falling. So now I will zoom into the active region using the 50x objective. So now I will have to rotate the turret so that the 50x objective is above the sample. Now I will rotate the turret such that 50x objective is on the top of my sample, and I hear the click sound, which makes sure that the objective is in place. The screen is again black, which means there is not enough illuminated light on the sample. So I will increase the illumination more. So again, some features are available and can be seen, and with a fine adjustment of focus, I will be able to focus on the desired place. The focusing through the 50x objective is done. So now that the focusing is done using the 50x objective, I will pull down this dark curtain. This ensures that there are no stray lights that affect my Raman signal from the sample, and it does not produce some artifacts which are not from actually the silicon sample. One important point: the green laser should only be used after it has stabilized. This can be made sure from the green status LED on the power controller of the laser source. If it is blinking, that means the laser has not stabilized. If it stops blinking, which means the green laser is now ready to be used. So on the software, at the top right hand side, you can see different tabs available: browser, acquisition, info, processing, analysis, display, and maintenance. Now the first step would be to set up the laser source. To do that, we will go to acquisition tab here. Now here we will go to instrument setup. Here different fields are present: objective, grating, ND filter, laser, hole, and range. We will set all these parameters according to what we are doing. First we will select the objective as 50x visible and press on OK. The grating we are using is 1800. We will use the ND filter at 5%. The laser wavelength we are using is 532 nanometer green laser, and the Rayleigh filter we are using is the edge filter. So we will select that. The confocal hole is set at 100. So since it is a silicon surface, we do not need to actually adjust the confocal hole. 100 is fine, and the range is set as visible. So now I will show you the actual beam falling on the sample. To do that, I will switch on the laser. There are two ways to switch on the laser here. First is from the video here in the acquisition tab. I will go to laser and I click on. You can see the laser beam is falling on the sample. The beam diameter seems to be this large. To switch off the laser, again I will go to laser and switch off. Another way to switch on the laser here is from the bottom panel. It is written here laser off. If I click on it, the laser will again turn on. The other parameters related to the laser are again shown in the bottom panel, that is the 1800 grating, the 532 nanometer edge filter, and the laser is 532, 5% ND filter, and the 50x objective being used. The detector which is shown in the green denotes that the detector is in a condition where it can be operated. Now, I will set the parameters further. In the acquisition tab, go to acquisition parameters. The sample that is chosen here is a silicon sample. In the spectro, I will switch to centimeter inverse for taking the Raman signal. Here I will set the parameter that is the known central peak for the silicon, so that the grating will adjust according to this central peak. For silicon, the peak will be at 520.7. Now in the range field here, I will select a range such that this central peak lies between this range. So I will select 300 to 600. Here AE level counts is disabled because we do not want automatic exposure. We will set the exposure time. Acquisition time and accumulation will be of use to us later on while doing acquisition. Here first I will set the RTD time. RTD time I set as 1 second. Now in the data bar here I will go to spectra. Now I will set this display for the spectrum that will be obtained. Now on the top left among the tabs I will select the display tab. Here in the scales menu I will select the spectral range, which is the same as the range in which I will do my acquisition, that is 300 to 600. Now that everything is done, we are ready to take our first Raman signal. The first step is to press on this stop all button and it will turn grey. This means that all active processes have stopped. Now in the icon bar, I move to this icon which is triangular in shape, much like a play icon, and here it is the RTD acquisition tab. If I click on it, I can see there is a peak in the spectrum. This peak belongs to the silicon sample. In the real time display, I can change the focus and see how the real time display signal changes, because I have focused my sample using a yellow light, but I am making the acquisition using the green light. Therefore, a slight focusing will actually increase the Raman signal. Now as the RTD signal acquisition is going on, I will adjust the focus on the sample using the fine adjustment knob and see the changes in the display of the RTD signal. As you can see, the signal intensity has lowered. So now I will move it back to its original position. Now again in the opposite direction of rotation, the signal intensity has decreased. So again I will move to an optimum position with the best focus. So this is how an RTD signal is obtained. Now to do an acquisition, I'll switch off this RTD by pressing on the stop all to stop all active processes. Now to do an actual acquisition, I'll again go to the acquisition tab here. I'll go to acquisition parameters and I'll set the acquisition time and the accumulation. Acquisition time is the time during which the shuttle will be open and the Raman signal will be collected. And accumulation is the number of time this is repeated for each data, so that on averaging the noise cancelled out and you get the best Raman signal. So as you increase the number of accumulations, you will get a better signal, but then it is a trade-off because it will increase your acquisition time. Now that everything is set, to do an acquisition, Again in this icon bar, I will go to this circular looking icon which says start spectrum acquisition. I will click on it. Now as you can see, initially for RTD signal the time of acquisition was 1 second, so the signal intensity was low. Now since the acquisition time is 4 seconds, the intensity is lot higher and it is reaching around 2000. So now we will move on to the analysis of this information that we have obtained. To do that, to do the analysis of the information that is obtained through the Raman signal, we will go to the analysis tab on the top right corner. When I click on the analysis tab, this peaks window comes up. Now this peaks window is for analysis, that is it fits Gaussian and Lorentzian peaks into the Raman signal. So for example, if you have homogeneous broadening, you will choose a Lorentzian peak, or if you have a non-heterogeneous broadening, you will use a Gaussian peak, or if you have some overlapping peaks, then you can also deconvolute those peaks using these settings. For now, we will choose using this amplitude parameter here in the peaks, we can set the cutoff for the different peaks that are in the Raman signal. For example, so you can see the maximum intensity that we have obtained is 2000. So if I set it to 50%, all the peaks that will have maximum intensity above 1000 will be visible, that is will be shown here as such. Here it is at 520.75. So the silicon peak should be ideally at 520.7. So and here the silicon peak is at 520.75. So the instrument needs some calibration so that the correct peak positions are obtained for further materials. So now we move forward to Raman setup calibration, because a good calibration translates to accurate measurement. So for the Raman calibration, in the software window, move to the top right corner and we go to the maintenance tab here. In the maintenance tab, you can see instrument calibration. So this allows the spectrometer to be manually calibrated to ensure that the recorded peak positions in a spectrum are correct. And I would like to emphasize that here we are using silicon for Raman calibration. This is because silicon has a strong Raman signal and it has a robust peak which does not change with changing operating conditions. For calibration, I will only change the coefficient value here under instrument calibration. So I will change this value by very small amounts. I will only change the last digit here. So it is 6, I will make it 3 and I will click on apply. Then to make a fresh acquisition, I will go to acquisition tab here. I will set the spectral peak position, the central peak position of silicon to be again at 520.7 and click on enter. Now for spectral acquisition, among the acquisition modes, I will go to start spectrum acquisition and click. So now I have obtained a new Raman signal, and after this acquisition is complete, I will check for where a peak is obtained. So again I will go to the analysis tab here. I will click on find, because this peak is obviously above the 50% intensity of its own intensity. So now the peak has shifted to 520.72. So now we are closer to 520.70. So this we will repeat. We will again go to maintenance tab, we will change the coefficient value by some amount, we will click on apply, we will go to acquisition, we will make a fresh acquisition and see if we have reached 520.7, and when that value has been reached, that means our Raman setup is calibrated and we can move forward to obtaining Raman signal from other materials. Now that the Raman setup is calibrated, that is the silicon peak is obtained at 520.7 centimeter inverse, we will move forward to observing the Raman signal from an emerging new material for semiconductor electronics, that is two-dimensional in nature, which is MOS2. The sample I will be taking is a silicon dioxide on silicon substrate on which MOS2 has been exfoliated. And so, for this observation I will be using a 100x objective to have a better spatial resolution. So, now the sample that I mentioned, which is MOS. So, now we move forward to exfoliate it on top of silicon dioxide substrate, and this is the focused sample surface using the 10x objective. The small crystals here are exfoliated MOS2 material. So, now I will switch to 50x objective. As I switch to 50x objective, the illumination is again low, so I will increase the illumination by turning the knob on the illumination source. The sample is almost focused, so I will use the fine adjustment for focusing. This is the best focus that we can attain using the 50x objective. Now, to get a better spatial resolution, because these flakes are very small in size, we will switch to 100x objective. By again fine adjustment, we will focus on the surface of the sample. These are the different MOS2 flakes, crystal flakes on the sample. To obtain Raman signal from this flake, which is actually many layers of MOS2, I'll put this green dot, I'll move the joystick such that this green dot falls on this flake. Now that everything is in position, I'll switch off the illumination source so that it does not produce artifacts in the Raman signal. And I'll click on stop all to stop all active processes. Now for acquisition, I'll go to the acquisition tab on the top right corner and I'll click on the tab. In the acquisition parameters, I'll set the position where I expect to find a huge peak. For MOS2, I am aware that a major peak will be obtained at around 403, and the unit is again centimeter inverse. The range I'll set from 300 to 550. Acquisition time is 4 seconds here, accumulation 4 and RTD 1 second. To set up the laser, in the acquisition tab, I will go to instrument setup. The objective this time that I am using is 100x. So, I will switch to 100x objective and click on OK. The grating is 1800, which is alright. ND filter, I can use a lower ND filter this time. So, let me this time switch to 3.2%. The laser is again 532 nanometer green laser, and the filter, the Rayleigh filter that we are using will be edge filter. The whole we keep again at 100 and the range is visible. Now we move to spectra and we adjust the display range of the x-axis, that is in centimeter inverse. We will again keep it as the same as the range that we have selected for acquisition, that is from 300 to 550. To delete the already taken observations, the Raman signal, we will click on close active data. If we want to save, we can click on save, otherwise no. Now that everything is done, we are ready to take an acquisition of this material. So now we again go to the icon bar and we click on the Start Spectrum Acquisition. So as we can see, it is giving a distinct Raman signature for MOS2. So we had known that we will get a peak at around 403 centimeter inverse for a monolayer of MOS2, but we see that it is shifted. So these kind of Raman signatures help us obtain a lot of information about the material that is present. So had it been at 403, we would say that it is a monolayer of MOS2, but it is shifted, and this denotes that it is a multilayer MOS2. And we had also observed the same in the microscope image. You can also see that there is a small peak that is present at 520.7 centimeter inverse. This belongs to silicon peak, and it is very attenuated because it was a bulk material on which laser was shined. Again, we will check the peak positions. So we will go to analysis and click on find. The peaks are present at 383.61 per centimeter and 409.24 centimeter inverse. So let us move on to a different flake which is thinner in width and see how its Raman signal is. So we will again go to this camera icon and click on it. We will turn on the illumination again. Now that I have found a flake that I think has lesser number of layers, I will move the sample such that this green spot falls on this flake here. So again, to take an acquisition, I will click on Stop All. In the acquisition tab again, I will check if everything is in place. So here I will define 403 and the range is 300 to 550. The grading is adjusting according to the value that I am entering here. So next, I will again go to Spectra. From the acquisition modes, I will click on Start Spectrum Acquisition. So here you can see that the peak intensity for the two Raman signal peaks has increased, and we saw the last time that for the bulk signal it had a lower intensity. So these kind of things, these kind of changes in the intensity, changes in relative intensity, changes in the peak positions help us to determine the properties of the material that we are investigating. Here you can again observe that the silicon peak here has a larger intensity. This is because the flake that we had chosen was thin. So therefore, Raman signal could be obtained even from the silicon sample beneath it. I'll also take an RTD measurement to see if this signal can be improved, because as I told earlier, using the yellow light we had focused on the sample and we are using the gleam laser for acquisition. So I'll take RTD measurement now. So I'll click on the real time display here. As you can again observe, since for RTD the time integration time or the acquisition time is lower, the peak intensity has lowered. Now I'll change the focus adjustment and see what it causes to the Raman signal. As I change the focus, the peak has almost gone. That is, the sample surface is not in focus or the material is not in focus. As I focus it again, the signal intensifies. So this is the best Raman signal that I am obtaining now. So this is how Raman acquisition for different material is done. So now if somebody wants to study the spatial variation of the Raman signal, for example, on this flake if somebody wants to investigate how the Raman signal changes from this end to the other end, we can use the Raman mapping. For Raman mapping, the first step is to get a video acquisition of the sample. So we will again go to the camera icon and we will switch on the illumination. Now I will go to the graphical manipulation toolbar on the left to select a proper mapping profile. So different mapping profiles are available, that is, one is the rectangular map here, the ellipse map, the polygon map, and different kinds of line profiles, horizontal, vertical, and the diagonal line profile. So to do the line Raman mapping, I will choose the horizontal line map here. To define the range, the spatial range of where the Raman mapping will, while the measurement goes on, which can be seen by the status bar here and by numbers that are seen here, we will set the cursors to different peaks that are available in the Raman signal for data analysis. So first I will set this green cursor such that it is very close to the Raman peak. Again this red cursor, and the purple cursor. Now in these widths in centimeter inverse, we will observe changes in Raman signal while moving from one end to the other end of the flake. So to do that, we will go to the analysis tab on the top right corner and we will go to map characterization. For all these three cursors that we selected, which were red, green and violet, we can select what parameter we want to observe about that Raman signal. So for example, if I set all the three to height and from and to are selected by the cursor definition that I made on the spectral window, and you can see while going from one end to the other end, for the red peak, it increases as it approaches the material MOS2 material, and then it again decreases as we move out from the material, as we had selected the line profile to be. That was from one end to the other end. For the silicon peak, as we go into the MOS2 material, as is obvious, the silicon peak will attenuate and will again increase after we have crossed that MOS2 material. Also for the other A1G peak, we can see that as the Raman map or the Raman acquisition reaches the MOS2 flake, the signal intensifies and it again decreases as we move away from the MOS2 material. So these kind of data analysis of different peaks can be done at different positions on the sample by using Raman mapping. Also we could have chosen a rectangular profile, mapping profile, or we could have chosen a circular line profile, and we could have observed Raman signal on the material itself at different points. So these kind of things can help us observe, for example, if there is a strain available at some part of the material, or there is something else that causes a change in the Raman signal. Also, now that we have looked into how the peak signal intensity changes spatially across the chosen line, horizontal line, we can also look into how the position of different peaks changes. So let me first look this, observe this for one of the peaks which has the red cursor here for suppose. So, I will disable the other green and the violet. I will switch this type to height, from height to position, and rescale it. As you can see, the position of the peak, this peak which is marked with the red cursor varies across the positions through which we have taken the Raman signal. The same we can do for other peaks that are marked. So, if I look at for the silicon peak here which is marked by the green cursor, I will disable the red and enable the green display settings, and I will change it to position. So, you can see how the peak position of the silicon peak changes. It is always around 520.7 with little variations. So, now that we have learnt how a Raman signal is obtained for a material and how Raman mapping is done, I would also like to highlight that PL spectra, that is the photoluminescence spectra of any material, can be obtained using the same setup. For that, you have to follow the following steps. For PL acquisition, I will first ensure that the beam is falling on the material of which I want to take the PL signal. So, now the green dot is on the crystal. Next, I will go to acquisition, and in the acquisition parameters, I will click on where centimeter inverse is written and change it to nanometer. Now, I will specify in the field here the position where I expect a peak in the PL signal to be obtained, that is the optical band gap for the material. From the literature review, I know that the band gap of MuS2 lies between 1.23 electron volt to 1.88 electron volt depending on the number of layers that are present in the crystal or the flake. So, I will choose a number in between, and here, and this time I will specify it in nanometer because I selected nanometer here. So, I will write 800. The range I will select such that the peak position lies within this range. So, I will select it from 670 nanometers to 960 nanometers. Now, when all the settings are in place, also I choose to increase the ND filter percentage to 5% to obtain a good PL signal. The next process is again the same. I will click on stop all to stop all active processes. I will go to spectra. Here, I will delete all the active windows of Raman signal. From the display tab, I will set the x-axis range, which is in nanometers, which is the same as the range that I put for acquisition, that is 670 nanometers to 960 nanometer. And now, I will start spectrum acquisition. Now, since this range, the spectral range is too large, for Raman signal we are only witnessing the change in the Raman, that is the Raman shift, and therefore the spectral range is small and we get the signal at once. But for PL spectrum the range is quite large, so this will happen step by step in different spectral ranges. So as we can see, this part is complete, and now in the next range the PL signal is being received. So now we will wait for the complete PL spectrum to be obtained. In the previous selected range, the peak for the PL was falling at the leftmost edge, that is for the least wavelength. Now, so I changed the range for spectral investigation from 540 nanometer to 780 nanometer. Now this has given us some extra information here. You can see a cluster of Raman peaks here which belong to the MOS2 material, that is for the material for which we were investigating, and also the silicon peak. Also with that we can see the PL signal, which is a broad peak. This probably belongs to the direct transition peak for MOS2 and the other is for indirect transition. So using the same setup, the same Raman setup, we can also observe the PL signal of different materials. Again a word of caution, here care must be taken that the range selected should not include the 532 nanometer spectral position, because the green laser that we are using is 532 nanometer. Even though we are using ELCH filter, a large intensity can pass through the filter and that can damage the CCD detector. So we obtained the PL spectra of the material using the green laser. But if we have a material with a larger band gap which cannot be probed using the green laser, we can use the UV laser, which has 325 nanometer, and therefore it can excite the electrons to a higher energy. The laser can be switched directly by using the software by changing from 532 nanometer to 325 nanometer. Mechanically the laser path will be switched from green laser to the UV laser. Also, we will put a band pass filter in the beam path for using the UV laser. In this way, PL can be obtained using the using the UV laser for materials with wide band gap. I would also like to add